Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another fabulous episode of Monday Night Magic with your co-hosts, my dear friend Ken Close, and myself, Lori Falk, your very favorite epigenetic geeks. We know that for sure because I bet you don't know any others. Anyway, tonight we're going to unpack the topic of loneliness. As we discussed last month, loneliness has become an epidemic in our society today. Over 50% of all adults actually consider themselves lonely. And that, my friends, is a pre-COVID statistic. I really wonder if that hasn't jumped to 70, 75%, given all that we went through during COVID. It's something that is impacting so many of our lives. I know certainly it's impacting my life. And tonight we're going to talk not just about loneliness, but some of the underlying causes and things that can bring it really to the surface. I had an experience recently where I lost an uncle, and it brought up layers and layers and layers of grief. And that grief has transcended into some loneliness. So I personally have been asking myself, how do I shift this? How do I get out of this? I think we're going to pick a happy topic next time, because it seems whatever we're going to talk about, I have to process ahead of time. So, the loneliness is pervasive, and I know it's an inside job. I can't blame it on anything out there. We could do that a little bit during the lockdowns of COVID, but we can't do it now. So what is it? What is it inside of me that has created this loneliness? Because it's real, it's tangible, it exists, it's out there. So what is it within me? And for me, it's grief. It's grief. And it's not the loss of my uncle. Rather, it's the loss of my marriage 30 plus years ago, because that love was so deep, which made the grief enormous. And there's a learned behavior in me that says, if I don't fall in love that deeply again, I can't get that hurt again. Well, how's that working for you, Lori? It's not. It's not. So I've got to get past the fear. And we're going to talk a lot about tonight what we can do to move past fear. We have some wonderful tools with the Healy, and there's other things that we can do as well. But it starts with us understanding that it's an inside job.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you agree, Ken?
I absolutely, because if we can see the origin of something, and then process where perhaps our trajectory is going, where do we want to go? We have an origin and we have a destination. I think we can plot a path, a course, right? And that's some of the principles that I think that are kind of important to understand. So number one, what's the origin? So where did some underlying condition or behavior or pattern start to develop to get us to where we are in this loneliness or this isolated position? And there's some great research out there. But I'm going to read a quote from a Swiss psychotherapist. His name is Carl Jung. That's Jung. And he says this. He says, there appears to be a conscience in mankind which severely punishes the one who does not somehow and at some time and at whatever cost to their pride cease to defend and assert themselves, and instead confess themselves fallible and human. Think about that for just a second. To confess ourselves fallible and human, now broken, right? In other words, essentially, we're kind of at whatever cost we're professing ourselves as broken, right? Now, and this is not, I'm not saying you guys are doing that, but there's a consciousness that is actually prevailing. And Lori spoke to it about pre-COVID stats around this idea that so many people are in this condition. So why? And now remember, consciousness is an energy force. It's an invisible energy force that permeates and radiates and is omnipresent. Okay. So it's not until we as an individual conscious start to have beliefs and behaviors and patterns that we start molding this particular biological form, this body. However, there's still an overall umbrella of consciousness, right? Which within the human spectrum, there's the animal spectrum, there's the plant spectrum, there's all kinds of levels of consciousness. Even within human consciousness, there's various levels, right, of awareness and different levels of consciousness. But as Carl was speaking, there seems to be this overlying umbrella, this veil that's kind of a blanket over us, and in which we feel like we need to admit to being, I don't know, I don't like to say broken, but saying that that's kind of a case. And where does that come from? I want to really, really dig down, because I'm the kind of person that goes to 10,000 feet, 50,000 feet, and I look at the landscape of things, because we can really gain a lot of understanding looking at the overall whole of ourselves, because this overall whole, this landscape of things is essentially a generic pool in which we are pulling from and contributing to. So if we go to 10,000 feet for a minute and take a look and understand, just look at our background at around the age of 35. Now, doesn't apply to all you guys. I know some of you young kids out there, but at about the age of 35, we have experienced, and I said earlier in the green room, I said, my belief around the purpose of life is experience, because without an experience, what is life? We're just hanging out, doing nothing, right? But it's experience. So at about the age of 35, we have experienced nearly all combinations of emotional involvement. In other words, there has been almost every type of emotion given to us, or an opportunity within an experience to feel an emotion, right? And then here's what happens. We have an experience, and we, as this consciousness, we assign meaning to that experience. We write a story about it, right? A whole story. I mean, if you could ever think about, I don't know, let's think of your first love, right? Because that's a really big one. Sometimes it's a really big one, or your first kiss, or your first real deep, intimate connection with somebody, right? You built a model. Now, that probably wasn't at the age of 35. Probably was not even at the age of 20, maybe, right? But earlier in life, we were less experienced. And so yet we're still assigning meaning to love, to relationship, based on way back then. And that gets written into the subconscious. Okay. 50% of what's in that subconscious memory, our own memory banks, is not true. Neuroscience proves that, right? Shows that 50%, folks, and now I'm not saying your memory's bad. That's not it. And I'm not saying that you're incorrect in your recollections. But the point is that when we record content within the brain, later on when we try to recall it, if there are pieces missing, we make shit up. We fill in the blanks. I'm just saying, we sometimes, and here's what happens. The mind, the brain elaborates, embellishes. And because, well, why not make it a little better than what really happened, right? Let's just make it a little bit more cool, especially if we are, rehearsing this condition to peers that we want to make it look a little bit more saucy. The point is that it's still not 100% correct. And yet it is truth. It's what we believe. And so what if a lot of those experiences that we've locked into the subconscious as being real about relationship are not? They're not. They're just a story made up so that number one, that if the end of that experience, so we fell in love, well, probably, maybe, we broke up. Maybe there was a heartbreak involved. Maybe there was some trauma. Maybe there was, some bad experiences associated with this. Well, number one, the subconscious builds kind of a vault around that experience. And anything that even comes close to resembling the contents of that vault, alerts go up. All kinds of, hey, what's going on here, And the desire, the need for us to be safe, that subconscious starts to guide us away or build protective mechanisms, shields, all kinds of elaborate mechanisms, so that if we even get close to the experience that hurt us before, we now are aware of it, not only aware of it, hyper aware of it, and the tendency is to avoid it. So if we're looking at from the 10,000 foot perspective, and we're just looking at what I want to say, getting back to togetherness, the meaning of that is that we have to begin letting go of apart, right? To get back to being together, we have to let go of being apart. And what was built into us because of a pain, because of a suffering, because of a heartbreak, was very elaborate systems to keep us apart. Because whenever anything comes close to being similar to the experience of our first love, say it's a brunette, right? My first love was a brunette. And so we get close to someone that's a brunette, and we start to feel these emotions inside. It's like, the vault starts to get tasked, and all of a sudden our safety mechanism is engaged and we move apart. So it's extremely important that we take a look at how we got to being lonely, how we got to being isolated. And if you look at the core, at the roots, it's a protective mechanism. We've built systems inside of us to keep us safe. So anytime we get close to something, here we are as adults, right? In a condition where we're trying to build a relationship, yet in the background, there's this underlying system that's holding us at arm's length, that's keeping us from the pain. And fear is this internal feeling that starts to kind of overwrite this desire. So, I mean, does that make sense? we go, if we go all the way to the root, we need to go really to the root, but look at from a higher perspective. And it's not just you, and it's not just me, folks. This is something built into the consciousness. This is built into humanity. So when we are having a challenge, I want you to understand that the one that you are seeking, say you're trying to build a relationship with somebody you just met, the one that you're seeking is in the exact same boat as you. Exact same boat as you. Their experience of heartbreak will definitely look different than yours, but the assigned meaning to that pain still invokes fear in this present moment when we're trying to get close to someone. So I'm a firm believer that if we understand that the person that we're seeking, the relationship that we desire, when we understand that they are having the exact same experiences, they're not telling us, right? I mean, are we telling them? Right? To be fair, are we just blurting out, hey, guess what? I got these things going on in the background right now that's keeping me at arm's length from you, but I really want to know you better. Right? We're so afraid that that's going to scare them off, but they're having the same kind of things. That dialogue is going on inside their mind. And guess what? It sounds just like their voice, just like the one in your head that sounds just like your voice. Of course, it'd be extremely weird if I heard your voice and vice versa. Anyway, but the point is that we're not different. We're these people, us, we're trying to build relationships with other folks. And their core is also in pain. Their core is also afraid. And that if we know that, if we just bring that to the surface, bring it to the table with us every day, I think that's going to help us build compassion, right? Patience, right? Grace, understanding with this other soul that we're interacting with. And if we know that too, it may also give us a little courage to maybe be more bold and make more eye contact and actually start more conversations, right? If there's an underlying pain, and this is what I think we really need to, one, I think, admit to. I got this pain, and this pain is because I'm hurting from my past relationships. And not only that, I have hurt others in my past relationships, and I take that responsibility. And I feel I have been abused in some of the actions from others. And I am sure, and I know I've abused others in my actions. And so that's a vulnerable spot that I'm willing to go to, because without being able to go to that and admit it, how can I ever heal? How can I ever get beyond it? So by knowing that we've had these experiences in the past, and folks, I know there's some of you out there may be saying, well, I know not on this group because you guys are super aware, but there maybe somebody listens to this that says, I've never hurt anybody in my life. I wouldn't hurt a fly. You don't have to know that you've done it. You don't have to know it, because we can't get really through this life and truly be our true self, our bold and beautiful and exuberant self, without probably ruffling some feathers, because we're not so much afraid of the darkness. We're more afraid of our light, right? Who am I to be so bold and beautiful and amazing, right? That worthiness starts to, you've heard these quotes. So sometimes people are going to look at us and resent us because we are in self-development and trying to improve ourselves, and maybe even living a more bold and beautiful life than them. And they're going to find resentment all around that. So even though you didn't mean to, I'm certain that there's been some ruffled feathers out there by each of us. Does that make sense, Lori?
100%. 100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, the crux of it is you've got to ask yourselves the questions. How did I get here? How did I get here? When do I remember feeling this way the first time? And then, could it be learned behavior from our ancestors, from our parents? Could it be karmic in nature? And that's, of course, a lot where the Healy coaching module will come in. If you create an intention that's the opposite of loneliness, I now have a fabulous social life and things are going wonderfully well, and so on and so forth. And you put that into the coaching module, you're going to find the root of some of these patterns. Mm-hmm. And we all know how accurate that coaching module is. So if you are having difficulty answering those questions yourself, then you really need to put that coaching module intention in there. And of course, I have one on having a great social life. I'll dig it up and I'll post it in the chat. The answers are there, but sometimes our conscious mind can't remember it. And sometimes it was too painful for our conscious mind to want to remember. Mm-hmm. So given that 92 to 98% of the time we are reacting based upon subconscious programs, not being aware of what those programs are isn't really serving you. You want to find the root cause. You want to find what's at the bottom of this. Those of you that were on last time probably remember my story about the equine gestalt therapy that I did, and it was the horse who reminded me the depth of the grief that I was carrying that was ultimately what was creating the loneliness for me.
Mhm.
So you have to go deep and you have to get real. I set an intention before I got to that Gestalt therapy session that I was going to have a major breakthrough. I set an intention that I was going to have a breakthrough around loneliness and relationships, because it's illogical, given who I am as a woman and given what I have to offer, that I'm still single after all these years. It's illogical. I mean, I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just being real and honest and accepting and acknowledging the person that I am. Well, I'm the one that's been stopping this. I have attracted over and over and over again womanizers who don't want a deep, committed relationship. I have attracted emotionally unavailable people. Well,
And why is that, right?
because I was emotionally unavailable. As much as I deeply and desperately wanted to be in a kind, loving, supportive, nurturing, wonderful relationship, consciously, on a subconscious level, I was scared shitless.
Mm-hmm.
Because what if I fell that deeply again? What if? And come on, we're not getting any younger, folks. Somebody's probably going to leave before the other person does, just because of natural causes at some point. You know, then what? But to never, ever, ever. I mean, think about when we adopt these beautiful puppies. And going into it, you know, at best, you're going to get 14, 15 years, at best. And I have had friends say to me, why do you do it over and over and over and over again? Because I've had dogs for 35 years. And I say, because you can't trade that kind of love. I would, no matter how deep that grief is, the love was worth it. And I found this beautiful graphic the other day that I'll share with you real quick. It's very simple. Grief is the last act of love we can give to those we loved. Where there is deep grief, there was great love.
You see the contrast there? Before we got on our call, I was talking about a mentor and a coach that I love dearly. And one of his coaching pieces of advice was, when somebody asks you if this or this, you would say both, right? Do you want to go to a dinner or to a movie? Both. Do you want time freedom and a great income? Both, right? And so do you want great love? Well, the reason that we get on board with both is to build range, to build the range of our abilities. Without deep, deep, deep love, you know, there can't be grief. I mean, and without grief, there can't be love. And some people think that, you know, that the opposite of fear is courage, but it really isn't. The opposite in frequency wise of fear is love.
Right.
So it's okay to be afraid. There's nothing wrong with being afraid. The key here that what we're trying to get across is that everyone, humankind is within this field of suffering or loneliness, but there's some core understandings to think about in terms of overcoming that. Number one is, the cool thing about the suffering and the fear and the pain and all of those lower frequency vibrations that the experiences you had, you didn't die. This is the key thing that I believe is so important, that I overcame those things and I didn't die. Where I went a little astray was by assigning the meaning that I don't want to do it again, or that I'm afraid to do it again, or that I can't survive the next time. Whatever the meaning you've put on it, that needs to be rewired. You go, okay, look, I didn't die. How about I give it another shot? Right? How about I put myself out there again? And it's not, believe me, with all the distractions that humans are attached to today, we need to get their attention. And as Lori said, there's really no logical reason why any one of you are lonely or not in a relationship that is fulfilling, because everyone logically has an enormous contribution, because you have 100 trillion cells right there with your unique abilities, and your unique abilities are very, very valuable to someone or multiple someones in this world. And these multitudes of someones, they are probably distracted, you know what I mean? And keeping their heads down. And until you make some bold and encouraging statement, you're not going to get their attention. So some of the things I'm going to encourage, I'm going to put this challenge out, is to make eye contact. All right. And making eye contact. Now, eye contact is, I mean, how many of you guys are super comfortable just going up and making eye contact with somebody? Right? Come on. Anybody? No, it's a bit of a challenge. But look at a child. Look at a child. You're in the grocery store, cruising around with your basket. There's a little kiddo in the basket next to you, and they're just like, just amazed by you, right? There's absolutely no fear. And they can sit there in their imagination forever, just gazing at you. And you're like, what? You know? But the truth is you are amazing. They've never seen a you before. And so they're looking at you with this wide open alpha brainwave state and even theta. So totally right into their subconscious in that moment. And if you go, blah, that's going to get written right into their subconscious, right? But if you smile at them and feel the warmth and the love in their heart, the tenderness and the vulnerability, and you can give that back, now you just create a connection with your own. That child stimulated that exact child in you that once upon a time understood and used the same wonder in their lives to navigate. So go out and hang out with a bunch of kids. I mean, I'm not kidding. It really does change the way that your inner child comes back to life, because it does. Your inner child comes back to life. And suddenly when that inner child is the navigator, right? The destination of a relationship, right? That target, you get a little bit more confidence and just use that childlike wonder. My constant driver, constant underlying motivator is curiosity. I'm telling you, if I'm ever in a spot where I maybe get stuck or not sure what the next move is, it's always, I jump into curiosity. And when I jump into curiosity, it downregulates the analytical mind, because I know what it's doing from an epigenetic and a neuroscience perspective. So I got a little bit of advantage there. Now, sometimes that's a disadvantage because I'll analyze things and go, and then I get stuck in that analytics. But I jump into curiosity, and curiosity moves me out of any kind of fear, any kind of unworthiness, any kind of lower frequency vibration, and turns on my creative mind. And creative mind is an inverse proportion to analytical mind. So the more analytical we are, the less creative we are. This is just neuroscience. This is just how it works. So the more creative we want, if we want to be more creative, be curious. It's a biohack that moves you right into that different brain activity. You're accessing different parts of the brain, down regulating the frontal lobe or the analytical self, up regulating this imaginary self, and boom, now I guarantee you your clarity will open up and your imagination starts to open. You're tapped back into that inner child. Okay, so when we're in the analytical state, there's nothing wrong with that, because we need to have that beta brain as well when we're learning. When we're building, I try to bounce back and forth. Literally, I've been in the midst of building or creating a system or even some kind of a project. And as I'm doing complex measurements or equations, I'll go, I wonder. I'll kick on my imagination, because here's the thing. We already know certain aspects, like driving a car, maybe creating a recipe, or there's certain things we already know how to do. So we don't need that analytical mind to build certain things. And so we can jump back into the creative self, and you'll see your project, whatever your project is, some other cool components unlock, because you're tapping into the infinite intelligence, not just your own. Infinite intelligence, which is this inner divine nature of every cell within the brain, well, within the entire body, but also within the brain. And so that connection starts to unlock some pretty cool attributes. So one of the things I really want to emphasize, and this is the challenge, another section of the challenges that I want to give to you, is to work on spending more time in the parasympathetic nervous system, or the creative state, than the sympathetic. Okay. Any kind of relationship that we're trying to build, we're going to be putting an energy out all the time. And if that energy that we're transmitting is something in the fight or flight, right? The sympathetic nervous system of fight or flight, then they're going to feel it. I mean, how many of you guys can feel someone that's stressed out? Right? I mean, come on. You guys we're all these amazing antennas. And so it's really hard when we're feeling someone that's stressed out to engage our own parasympathetic system, our own rest and digest, because it's a subconscious function to put on the guard. But I challenge you to practice that at all times, in all occasions. When you're feeling some kind of internal drive to freak out, find the inner peace, and whatever it is out there, the experience that's triggering that inner response. That inner response is just a rehearsed mechanism from the past. It does not have to be who you are right now. Okay? It doesn't. So by being curious about this experience you're having, another person that's stressed out, another condition and that's stressed out, whatever it is, and you're starting to feel it yourself, take a moment and pause. We've talked about breath exercises. We've talked about, the Healy does a great job of putting us into that parasympathetic state. Take a moment to be curious. Take a couple of breaths and find grace for whatever the stimulus, right? Whatever the stimulus, another person, a condition, an experience, an environment, whatever it is, be curious about it and allow yourself to down-regulate just for a moment. And you'll feel this alignment with that child again, because it's new. Believe me, if you've always responded in a stressful way, anything that's new, remember what I said earlier about the age of 35, we've got all the combinations of emotions built in. There's nothing new going on anymore. We're essentially working on a set of rehearsed past instruction. And you've heard Lori talk about even ancestral influence coming forward to this moment. The point is that you didn't just make up the emotion you're having right now. You didn't do that. It's within the subconscious, and an outside experience being viewed by our senses triggered some kind of an inner dialogue or assigning of meaning. So the better we get at being aware of that and pausing, just elongating that moment of expression or reaction, just elongating it and using curiosity as your hack, you can start down-regulating the body's fight or flight mechanism and drawing in people, relationships, experiences, like Lori said, that when she realized what the base emotion was, right? All of a sudden she got confirmation instantly from the outside world. How many of you ever done that? You change some aspect of yourself and then you walk into a coffee shop or something and boom, somebody confirms, oh my God, I love your dress, right? You're like, well, wow, thanks, right? Or whatever. I don't get that compliment very often. I rarely wear dresses, but I don't know. I do compliment others. So, right, Lori, I mean, you had a story of an experience.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Before I jump into that, I just want to preface it by getting back onto that grief topic for just a second. Little known fact, I'm sure you guys don't know this, I am the consummate parrot head. So yes, Jimmy Buffett's passing recently really, really, really was emotional for me. That is my music. That's my happy music. I probably have more Jimmy Buffett songs in my playlist than any other artist. And you guys thought I was just the angel lady who set an epigenetic geek. No. Dancing Queen. So I saw this and I wanted to share it with you because it's a Jimmy Buffett quote and it's not, yeah, there it is. Okay, grief is like the wake behind a boat. It starts out as a huge wave that follows close behind you and is big enough to swamp and drown you if you suddenly stop moving forward. But if you do keep moving, the big wake will eventually dissipate. And after a long time, the waters of your life get calm again. And that is when the memories of those who have left begin to shine as bright and as enduring as the stars above. So the key point here is you have to keep moving forward. You can't just stay stuck. Because if you're staying stuck, that wake is just going to overwhelm you and overcome you. So I decided I need to do things differently. I need to shake things up a bit. I need to not show up in the world the way I have been showing up. I need to take risks. So social media, which is one of those things that can keep us at a distance, every once in a while, Facebook will recommend someone as a potential friend. So there was this charming man that they recommended, and I saw that one of my clients knew him. So I thought, and he lives in Denver. Always wanted to live in Denver. Oh, what the heck? I'll send him a friend request. So I did, and he got back to me the next day and thanked me and said how grateful he was that I reached out and for the connection. And I took a deep breath and I thought, well, what do I really think of that? And I started to type it out and I'm like, I can't send that to him. That's way too like sharing of my heart. I mean, what? And then I said, no, remember, you're showing up differently now. So this is what I wrote. Well, my dear, you came up as a suggested friend, and I loved your energy. It jumped right off your picture and into my heart. So I thought, why wouldn't I? And he got back to me so fast and left me a voice message because he was actually driving when he saw this, and was just, he said, you're making me blush. That was so sweet and so kind and so wonderful. And I'm like, okay, I guess it does work. Because I knew I was being vulnerable and I knew it was a little scary for me, but I'm like, what would Ken say? I'm gonna get bracelets for everybody that say WWKS. What would Ken say? And so I did that. And then I set an intention that I was wanting to be around a lot of people. So Gabby and I wanted to go for a walk, and rather than just going to the forest preserve or the conservancy, I wanted to go. There's a beautiful walk along Lake Mendota that goes from Picnic Point up to campus, and the UW-Madison campus is exquisitely beautiful. Trust me, Gabby has taken me through every square foot of it. And so we go to where we normally do our walk, because that walk is where we can see people, because there's other people from campus walking along the path there. Well, we didn't just have that amount of traffic. It was the path that the running portion of the Ironman competition was on. So we got there, and there are hundreds of people, not just a few that we would normally run into. And so if you want to actually have an experience of looking into someone's eyes where they don't go like this, go to an Ironman race or something like that. Because Gabby and I sat in the median, in the middle of this, between the two paths, and we started cheering people on, because I mean, that's a major feat. That's like, I don't have any, like, my brain can't comprehend doing that much in one day. It just can't. And so this is the running portion of it. And how far is the running? Is it like
5K? Good
marathon?
Yeah, half marathon.
Yeah, so,
marathon.
Right. So they did a half Ironman on Saturday, and this is Sunday, and they were doing the full Ironman that day. And so these people talk about like in great shape, because some of these people didn't even look like they were exhausted, like you would have thought. But I would cheer them on and go like, good job. And they would look in your eyes. It was the coolest thing. Well, they didn't have phones. If the phones they did, the phones weren't out. They were certainly not looking at them. So I opened my heart. I set an intention to be around people. I looked in people's eyes, and I had a fabulous experience. I didn't even want to go home. It was such an incredible experience. So it's an inside job, you guys. Yep. If you want to move past this, it's an inside job. You really, really, really got to do the inner work. And I'm going to help you. I actually created an absolving grief intention. Right? And I'm encouraging each and every one of you to put this into your Healy coaching module. I have moved past grief and found wholeness again with a renewed sense of self. Each new day brings me revitalized hope. It is safe for me to fully and completely love deeply again. I open my heart and allow divine love to be forever embodied within me. As I reveal my authentic self, I am loved unconditionally. And my purpose is to attend daily to my constant ascension to higher vibrations, to follow my joy and create the life of my dreams. I stay in the present moment, following my heart's desires. And in so doing, I have found true joy within myself again.
I love that. Did you hear her say the present moment? That's so important, because how many times are we rehearsing the past? Right? The present moment. Right now, this is exactly the moment we get to create 800,000 cells in this second, and then this one, and so on, and build these bodies. Now, if we keep the record of the past, rehearsed in the present moment, all those experiences of suffering and shadows and pain, then we can predict exactly what the body's going to be tomorrow. The same, painful, shadowed, and limited. I love that. It's that present moment right now. And there's never a better opportunity to build this new self than this present moment. So some of the tools that we talked about are going to be this understanding that we've got some shadows, but we didn't die, right? This pain didn't die. And guess what? The ones that we're communicating with out there, they did too. That kind of levels the playing field, right? We all have this body that's had these conditions and these experiences, and the ones we're seeking are also seeking us, but we have like issues, none of which need to be a limit. Now, when you have compassion for someone else with the same issue you have, loving yourself, loving them, it starts to build that bridge of healing, right? What else do you got there, Lori?
Well, I want to address something that some of you are probably thinking. I've been asked this question a lot because when I write intentions for the coaching module, I always write them. They're lengthy because I want to get you out of your heads and into your hearts. Because the Healy's not reading the words. Remember, it's a German device. It probably doesn't even read English. But it's AI, maybe it does. Anyway, the point is it's not reading what you're putting in there. And now with the new coaching module, you only get like 200 characters. So I get asked all the time, well, what do we do? And I say, copy it and paste it. Wherever it stops, it stops. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Your intention is that it's all there, but mostly by getting out of your heads and getting into your hearts, you are in the emotional energy of that new timeline. So here you are in grief and loneliness. And I wrote that intention of where you're going to be now that this is all absolved. And I've got you into a feeling place of how you're going to feel when you're feeling that joy again and that connection again. Now the Healy has the ability to scan between where you are and the new timeline, and it finds everything that's in the way.
Mm-hmm. I love it because that's exactly, remember I talk about consciousness. There is a perfect blueprint of you in the field, in the quantum field. There's a perfect blueprint, and it exists as a reference point. But free will, consciousness, our own thought, free will is stronger even than God's will, because that's our power. That's our superpower, to be able to freely make choices. The problem is not all those choices are great. They're good learning tools. They should not be our future. They're our past, right? So in allowing yourself the opportunity, if you're working on creating togetherness, and remember, relationship, loneliness and isolation, the antidote is relationship. It's relationship with yourself first, creating a great relationship with you, understanding and giving yourself grace, tolerance, patience. Then all of that builds an energy field that radiates out to do the same for the surrounding around you. So as we're moving forward, a couple of the challenges is going to be eye contact. And I want you to start feeling when you do make eye contact, you go, oh crap. When somebody, you're not expecting them to actually look up, maybe, and they do, and you go, stick with it, nod, smile, something. But seek eye contact, and you'll find that it will seek you. Our reticular activating system, you've heard me talk about this before. processes 400 billion bits of information per second. This is this super highway of information. And what we consciously are processing is only 2,000 of those bits. So when we set an intention, as what Lori just read there, remember, you don't have to be able to write it all out within the coaching module or even copy what she's got in the chat. It's cool to have, but just because she said it, it's part of all of us. And anyone who ever hears it, it'll be part of them as well. And there's no timeline. There's no past or future with this intention. It permeates everything. So you've heard it. Now it's you. And when you go out into the world and you start to interact, the making eye contact, making connection, having the internal grace, that higher vibration of self, all of that is going to take place in an instant. And your reticular activating system, 400 billion bits of information, got it locked down. It is locked down right in there, right? So maybe people say, oh, I can't remember that. You don't have to. It's going to guide you. Your 2,000 bits of information is the range. It's the range of you. And so when you love deeply, grieve fully, you have that range. Your reticular activating system is what kind of points you in the right direction. Just happens to have you look left instead of right. And the person on the left is willing to make eye contact with you. The one on the right's not, right? The one in the Facebook feed that you answer to that goes, oh, just on a whim, right? I do this too. I love what you did there, Lori, because I do what's called random acts of connection.
Mm-hmm.
I call them random acts of connection, and I'll send somebody a message along with it. Hey, just randomly I'm connecting, and here's who I am. And I have not had anyone say, not respond in some way and create a connection. So have faith, courage, and understanding within you that what's challenging you is also challenging them. It didn't kill you. It didn't kill them. They're still here. We're still here. We're still creating those 800,000 cells per second. So make some adjustments within our awareness and start using the Healy, the coaching programs. One of the things that's really good, by the way, one of the programs that I like to use is in the sleep program, or the sleep page, the microcurrent. I run the bed rest because that one tends to put my body into that parasympathetic nervous system. And when the body is there, it's the vagus nerve system within our bodies is a super highway of information, and more than half of the information that goes back and forth in that superhighway is the body speaking to the brain. So 64% of the information that's going through that superhighway is information from the body to the brain. So when we can get our body's frequency by microcurrent, infusing that bed rest program into the parasympathetic nervous state, it feeds the mind or the brain and affirms calm. You're not going to go to sleep. That's not what it's necessarily meant to do. It's meant to calm you. And so this helps to put us into that creative state. As I mentioned earlier, getting out of the analytics into the creative. And guess what? Our childlike self starts to spread its wings. Right?
Indeed, it does. Indeed, it does. I also want to just point out the fact that COVID cases are on the rise. Why do I bring that up? Certainly not to instill fear, because that's not my MO. I bring that up because our lungs hold our grief.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, 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 really want you guys to move out of the grief. Clear it out of your systems so that you are no longer a vibrational match to that lovely little virus. And let this angel help you. Epigenetic Emotional Healing Art for viral lung infections. Let this angel of emotional healing work with you to lovingly move you through the process of letting go of the emotional baggage and limiting beliefs buried in your subconscious mind that are no longer serving you and often prevent you from living the life of joy you are so deserving of. So deserving.
That's beautiful. You know, there's some of you guys that maybe Facebook friends with me have saw a post that I put out in regards to Dr. Joe Dispenza's research team and the specific modalities for increasing our body's resistance to viruses and all kinds of ailments. There was in January of 2022, he did a live presentation from a week-long event in on Marco Island, Florida. And he presented the research and the information on the discovery of the way to produce and create a protein within the body called SERPINA5. It's a protein that our body can produce, but there's a way of actually increasing that protein within the body that builds resistance. And the study shows builds very specific resistance to all viruses, and including the COVID. So I did post the research. I did post the findings and things on my Facebook page. I will make sure Lori has it. So if you guys are all on the email list, that you can see that research. And the way to do this, and I get questions all the time about, hey, so how long do you have to meditate? Because part of the process is meditation. Meditation is simply a method in which you get beyond yourself. That's it. Becoming aware, right? The ancient definition of meditation is becoming aware. So to get beyond yourself, remember what I said, that there's a perfect blueprint of you in the quantum field. It's this consciousness that solidifies the waveform into matter, AKA body. That's the simplicity of it. Well, it's not that simple, but if you understand quantum physics, well, I'm not saying you have to understand quantum physics, but know that there is a perfect blueprint for you. And when your mind has a belief, that's what solidifies the material body of you. It's all your belief structures, right? So what we've assigned meaning to and put into that subconscious. So when we get beyond that, beyond the conscious mind, we've dimmed down our senses. We no longer see things. We've got an eye mask on. Our eyes are closed. We're no longer hearing things outside of us. We have some non-verbal musics maybe playing in. We're in a comfortable position. And I love guided meditations because they can, my mind could wander and it will bring me back. I don't have to do anything. Just follow the instruction. To me, that's simple. So I just simply follow the guidance, and it can move me out of this past rehearsal to where I'm in no place, no time, nowhere, no body. And I, at that point, I just linger. I just stay in that nothingness. You don't have to do anything. And the longer you stay there, the longer the body's repairing itself. This is the beauty. It's not about, can I manifest $1 million? It's about, can the body repair itself? Because the longer and the better the body repairs itself, the more able, the more motivated, and the more excited you are about making $1 million or whatever it is you have to do in your life to drive forward with your dreams. So we'll make sure you have that content. The true thing about meditation or prayer is that it's not about how long you're there, but how well you get beyond yourself. That's really the key to meditation is getting beyond yourself, because it's this self right here that has all that past on it. And when we get beyond it and we connect to the divine signal, there's one out there just waiting for you. But you've got to make a crack in the darkness for that light to shine through. And the only way that happens is when we get beyond the rehearsal, get beyond the past, and allow ourselves to be in this present moment. And that's where you linger. So I just wanted to kind of close with that little gift that we're going to, hopefully you guys can take a look at what that research looks like. The research team that Dr. Joe uses is the top in the world. And I've had the honor, I was in the audience the day he made that presentation, and the findings from the research. It's been an honor to be part of that research. I was one of the 1,000 people that was within that study that discovered that content. And so it's real. The point I want to make there is that it's real. And I have been exposed, I can't tell you how many times, and have never had COVID. It's just one of these ways in which the body just loves us when we love it back. Does that make sense? All right, folks. I'm so happy you were here, by the way.
Yes. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Ken and I love doing this for all of you. We love working together. We love being epigenetic geeks. And we love all of you. And we hope to see you all again on October 9th.
Thank you, guys. Big love. Remember the challenge. Eye contact.
Eye contact. Eye contact. And when you're on Zoom, the eye contact is look at the camera.
Turn the cameras on.
Turn them on and look in the camera. Don't look at the boxes on the screen. Look in the camera, because doesn't this look like I'm looking right in your eyes? 100%. All right. We love you guys. Have a beautiful night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.